Hi, it's Lauren Foster with Be Happy First, and this is 10 Steps to Higher Self-Esteem and Greater Happiness. We are in week 8, step 7 of a 12-week master course, and I do apologize for being a little bit late. We have a whole lot of different material, a lot of material to cover today. So I'm just going to kind of let the universe guide me as to what feels like the very best thing to cover this week. And in this awesome topic of connecting with infinite intelligence, with your deepest intuition, with this force that connects all of us and knows everything. There is an answer to every question, and what we're going to talk about this week is how to get tuned in, tapped in, turned on, and connected with that source. So just a quick review of what we've gone through in weeks 1 through 7. We started out just saying hello and talking about what exactly we mean by self-esteem. And what we mean is the invisible boundary that makes up who you believe yourself to be and what you believe yourself to be capable of and what you believe the universe and the world and our environment are capable of delivering to you. And the bad news is you can never outperform your self-esteem. You've been programmed throughout your whole life to have these certain thoughts and images of yourself, and that's all that you can do with your life. Now, the good news is you can expand your self-esteem. You can expand your horizons. You can give yourself a greater area in which to grow to, and that's the entire message of this whole 12-week program is being a better person, better version of you today than you were yesterday, increasing your self-esteem, increasing the belief in yourself and your potential and the potential of the universe. And so on this path, we started kind of looking into our childhood to see the childhood dreams that we might have given up and explored that a little bit to figure out what kinds of dreams might still be valid and still be good for us, and to kind of bring back some of the things that we loved. We tested to see if any of those things would still fit with our normal life and created a new vision as adults, keeping in mind the things that we loved as children. And then we tested that vision. We tested that dream to make sure that it was still worthy of us. And we talked about knowing your fears and recognizing your fears for what they are and putting them in their proper place, and understanding that a lot of times what you want is right on the other side of that fear, and having the making the decision to move past the fear towards the thing that it is that you want. Recognizing resistance, gaining the understanding that there is an infinite flow of abundance that is ours. Our only work is to lower our resistance to it. Recognizing resentments and practicing the power of forgiveness, understanding when we might be holding on to old grudges, and how powerful it is to forgive for us. Has nothing to do with the person that we're forgiving. And then last week, that's what we talked about last week. So that catches us up. So this week we are talking about connecting with infinite intelligence. And that this really is such a giant subject. One day I was having a sort of theological discussion with someone that I love very much, my brother, and I was asking the question, this has been many years ago, 10 years ago at least. Now, I have been in this study and exploring these principles and how all of this fits together for years. And I posed the question to him, why does God have to speak to me through a book, through a person, through a priest, through a preacher, through anything? Why can't God speak directly to me? And I believe, and I know for certain now, that God, the infinite life force, does speak directly to me because I'm a part of that. But the question at that time was, why not? And he said, how do you know if it's the voice of God and not just me or the devil, should there be such an entity? And I didn't know the answer to the question at that time. But now, having learned and studied and met Mary Morrissey, who explained this to me perfectly, the way that you know the voice of your higher source, your higher self, your God, whatever word you decide to assign to it, is the same way that you know the voice of your best friend. If your best friend calls you and says, hey, you don't have to ask, You don't have to say, who is this? Because you recognize that voice because you've listened to it a lot of times. And this is how we learn the voice of our maker, of our highest self. You didn't create yourself. You can't even breathe yourself or make your heart beat one time. So don't get hung up on what you call this force that is joining all of us and beating our hearts, but understand that it's an infinite resource for us, and figuring out how to tap into that and ask the right questions is really, really powerful. So the voice of your highest self will never ever lie to you and will never ever make you feel bad. So that's another way that you start to know when you are hearing your own intuition, you're hearing the voice of the Creator, of the Most High, of God, or you're hearing the voice of your paradigm. It's because your paradigms, your old life, your primitive brain, your memories, your patterns, they talk to you too. So you have to notice how you're feeling at the time that you're receiving any kind of message from wherever it's coming from. And if it makes you feel alive, if it makes you feel abundant, if it makes you feel like you are in the flow of the river of life, then that is the voice of your intuition, of your higher self, of infinite intelligence. If you feel constricted, if you feel like you're battling and being buffeted about by decisions that are too hard to make, and that you're working so hard and paddling upstream, this is going to be the voice of your ego or your paradigms or your primitive mind. Your primitive mind cares nothing about your happiness or your ease, your growth, your grace. It only wants to keep you safe. So that it will oftentimes throw up in your face some really scary messages whenever you try to grow beyond this edge that you have. So that's what we're working on now, is expanding that edge. Let's see, where did the rest of my notes go? Okay, so let's break this down into 3 sections. We're going to talk today about the power of decision, the power of the question, and the power of alignment. To decide means to cut away from. When Michelangelo was asked how he created the David, he said that the David was already there. All he did was chip away everything that was not the David. And that's what we want to do with our lives. We want to chip away everything that is not like our vision. And that it isn't always easy. For one thing, we're discarding old habits and patterns of thought that we've kept with us our entire lives, and that's not easy. And sometimes when we start to live in a more enlightened way, in a more expanded way of thinking, we look at some of the things that we hang on to and see them as they are, and that they don't serve us. They might be trivial, they might even be harmful, and they are usually patterns of thought and things like that, but sometimes it could be a place, it could be a thing, it could even be a person. And not everything from your old life gets to go with you into your new life. So making the decision that you are going to cut away from everything that is not in alignment with your vision is a very, very powerful thing. So the power of the decision will help you to get in tune with infinite intelligence and with your highest self. And then the power of the question. Every single question that we ask, the universe has an answer for. So why not ask big questions? We've been trained our whole lives to ask small questions. How am I going to get to the end of the month without running out of money? How am I going to make my paycheck last through this time period? And month after month, that's what you do. You just barely get by. Whereas if you asked a different question, how can I get to the end of this month and have this much money left over, plus be able to take a long weekend 2 states away? Or how could I take 2 weeks off work, spend it in the south of France, and make $10,000? No matter what the question is, if you frame it to the universe, you'll get the answer. Michael Beckwith tells this very interesting story about when he was forming the Agape Church, which was internationally famous. He was traveling back and forth the same route every day, and he saw a homeless man who was hanging out on an island collecting money every day, and often he would be stopped at the red light, and he would, give the man some money and talk with him, and he noticed he's articulate, he's bright, and he started to wonder and kind of asked the question, how does a person like this become homeless? And question kind of dwelled on his mind. Well, before too long, the IRS contacted him and said, you owe a lot of back taxes, and we're going to take everything you own if you don't pay up. And he couldn't pay up. He didn't have that sum. And suddenly he realized this was the answer to the question he was asking. This is how a person who is articulate and successful and bright becomes homeless. Well, he instantly made the decision to see the Christ and see the elevated, enlivened, and enlightened divine soul in that homeless man, instead of asking the question about how he got there. And come to find out, the IRS had made an error. He didn't owe all of that, but he had gotten an answer to his question, and he got even more careful then about the types of questions that he asked of the universe. So it's very important where you are putting your attention, because the universe sees where your attention is as to where your intention is. And I love all of my friends in the class of 1983, but we're all 51, 52 years old now, and every time I open Facebook, somebody's complaining about something. This is hurt. This is broken. This, I'm scared about this. We're so focused on the things that are going wrong that we're just attracting more things going wrong. And man, I love you guys. Focus on what's going right. Love what's going on with yourself, and attract more of the good things that are going on. So I digress a little bit, but I love you guys. All right. So, and then finally, we're going to talk about the power of alignment. And this is kind of even how we started out, that picture life as a flowing river. And you're supposed to be just right in there, flowing along and being happy, and everything that you want is downstream. That we're kind of taught as humans, especially as Americans, that we put our boat in the stream and we turn it upstream and we row, and we sweat and we bleed and we have blisters, and they build a monument to our name because we work so hard. And it doesn't have to be this hard. And now, I'm not saying that no action is required. Of course, action is required. But when you have a vision and you are in alignment with that vision and with the voice of your highest self, then you get thoughts that are, ideas are the currency of the universe. Opportunities show up. Ideas show up. You think of things that you can do in the direction of your dream that just light you on fire, and you can't wait to do them. This inspired action, it could kill you, it could give you calluses, it could make you sweat, but you're going to love every minute of it. And that's the difference between inspired action that's in the flow of where you want to be, and forced action that is in the way you think you can make things be. So get in alignment with your highest self and with the force of with the flow of abundance in the universe. So that is pretty much what we have for you today. Homework. I actually forgot to come up with homework for you this week. How about we have a week without homework, and your assignment is to go back and review the first 7 weeks that we've already done, and see what you have how well you have completed the homework that we've had before, and what progress you've made. And I will do the same. I'll go back and look at that and add some notes and things like that too. So next week we will be on step 8, week 9, and that step is, you think I'd have this memorized, but I don't. I change the wording around all the time so that it's a fresh message for someone who might not have heard it before. Oh, next week we're wrapping things up. No, we're not. Next week we are in week 9, step 8, owning your belief in yourself, both as a spiritual divine being having a human experience, and as a very unique human being, as unique as your thumbprint. So until next week, I will look forward to seeing you then. My name is Lauren, and be happy first. Much love. Namaste.